The last question I want to ask you is this: we've been talking about the religion, progressivism and conservative. Isn't there also just a very human element to this, which is we don't want to admit to ourselves that just some people are always going to need to be looked after. Some people are never going to get better. Some people are always going to be vulnerable. And that is just the way it is. And that isn't something that we want to accept.
I actually, I agreed with everything you're about to say until the very last thing you said. I think that is what you said. What you said, that there's just some people that are going to have to be taken care of, that are just, if we're honest, call them wards of the state, to use an ugly expression, but I think an honest one. I found that to be the place of the most common ground, including from dissident radical left folks. I actually quote a few of them in the book. And in fact, on Twitter, there's some Marxists and socialist critics of liberalism. There are people that talk. They talk a lot of trash about the so-called professional managerial class. Sort of the spiked type, former lefties or lefties, where they have a more class-based view. Also, Christopher Lasch is an important thinker in this tradition. But they kind of go, this is bonkers. This is not, they're like, basically they would say something like, socialists, don't think it's humane to leave schizophrenics on the street. Like, there's nothing about Marx or socialism that would have you leave people with schizophrenia on the streets. At the same time, I find I quote conservatives at the end of San Francisco saying, look, we just know that intelligent conservatives know there's just a set of people you have to take care of. So in some ways I like that as a starting place for some agreement. And that's why we call it Cal Psych. You start with people that, look, everybody agrees these people have schizophrenia. Michel Foucault is dead. And I'm sorry, but there's just a tiny handful of people that are going to deny that somebody with schizophrenia has schizophrenia or some serious mental illness. And then you can kind of build from there. Then I think you're dealing with people with non-serious mental illness, including people suffering from drug addiction. And then there's some effort to make them independent. But, honestly, even with some of those so-called wards of the state or people with schizophrenia, some of them can work, and so I think it's also a way to say we're never going to give up on anybody. We're always going to be trying to help people to live their best possible selves and to be, I think into the center right, if that's what this is, a more psychologically aware, a more pro-psychiatry, a more psychiatry positive outlook.